world's largest air show is back for the first time since before COVID. Much like previous years, the Paris Air Show will be all about the battle for the skies between the megajet builders Airbus and Boeing. So let's get straight to Bloomberg's Guy Johnson, who's at the Paris Air Show with a robust conversation. Over to you, Guy.
Francine, thank you very much indeed. There is a huge US presence at this show, bigger than certainly I can remember for many, many years. The US is back, the Paris Air Show is back, and that is fantastic to see. Now, Congress is not going to be left out, and as a result of which we have a bipartisan team that has come from Congress, and the leadership of that team joins us now. We have two fantastic senators to talk about how the aviation world sits in Washington, D.C. Senator Shaheen joins us from New Hampshire, and Senator Moran joining us from Kansas. Both welcome. Thank you very much indeed. You both made it through the traffic gridlock, but I guess you probably are both fairly skilled in dealing with gridlock. Let's talk a little bit about where we are at this air show. We're in Paris, but we've got a number of big problems that we need to deal with. And one of the biggest, Senator Shaheen, is what is happening on the sustainability front. I talk to aviation CEOs that come out of the United States, and they say that Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act has given them a huge advantage. It is a huge tailwind. How important has that piece of legislation been for American businesses in this space?
Well, I think it's very important, and we've seen a lot of new startups, a lot of interest in new technologies that are going to make us more sustainable. And it's also a place where we can partner with our European friends and allies to work better and smarter. So I think it's been a great help to business and industry in the U.S., but it's also something that has reverberated around the world.
We're even talking about maybe potentially copying it in certain parts of Europe. Senator Moran, the US is here, Europe is here, huge presences from both. One thing we're not seeing here is a big presence coming from China. How important is it that the Europeans and the US work together to make sure that they continue to dominate this space, continue to dominate civil aviation and also military aerospace?
Well, we're glad to be back to the Paris Air Show. You can speak of this in terms of the business relations that develop here at the Air Show, but really this year's Air Show, while the interest and excitement is there, it's been absent since 2019 here in Paris. The excitement to be back here at the Air Show exists, but really it occurs with a backdrop of things going on globally that the industries represented here have a significant role to play. So we have the opportunity for the United States to showcase its capabilities, to make certain that the world knows that our technologies and advancements are at the forefront of global opportunity. And it's certainly a business issue, but the backdrop that is the most serious is what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in China. We want the world to ally with those who are interested in freedom to fight tyranny. The defense presence here is something that we need to showcase to make sure our allies and our potential allies know that the United States is so capable.
The United States is so capable, and the United States at the moment is at the forefront of that. Where is the Republican Party? How convinced is the Republican Party that the war in Ukraine is something that should be supported beyond the spring offensive? If the spring offensive doesn't go well, will the Republican Party be there for Ukraine?
You know, we have about 10 United States senators here at the Air Show, largest contingent of members of Congress at air shows in its history. The 10 of us split about evenly Republican and Democratic, and certainly among us, the people, just if you polled the folks being here, there is strong support for Ukraine. We want to see them succeed. There are factions of both parties who are interested in less defense spending, that are interested in shifting our focus away from foreign obligations to domestic, more interested perhaps in China than they are in Ukraine. That's a very small part of the political dynamic of the United States. And for those particularly on that position that China is the most important, well, I share that view. But in order for us to demonstrate our commitment, what happens in Ukraine is the most important thing that's in front of us now to deter China from misbehavior.
Do we have bipartisan support? on that?
Absolutely, and it's really the extremes on either end who have raised concerns about Ukraine. You know, I had a group of Ukrainian women fighters in my office a couple of months ago, and one of the things they said to me, I have repeated over and over to my constituents. The young woman said to me, give us the arms so that we can fight the Russians, so you don't have to. And when I say that to the people at home, they understand. And that's the message that we want everybody to get, that this war in Ukraine is about whether democracies are going to succeed, and you can bet that China, Iran, North Korea, all of our adversaries are watching very closely what happens.
Do you think, you said on armed services, was it correct that the debt ceiling bill ring-fence defense? Is that the right thing to do? Is the way that America is approaching and supporting the war in Ukraine in some ways degrading the United States armed services? How should we be thinking about that conflict in relationship to America's ability to, if it had to, fight the Russians? Let's hope that never happens. Or if it had to, let's hope it never happens, fight the Chinese.
I don't think so, because in addition to the funding piece, we also agreed to a supplemental support for Ukraine. But it's also invigorated NATO in ways that we haven't seen for decades. It's given us the opportunity to work together in a fight in supporting the Ukrainians that we haven't done in decades. Right now we have had the biggest air exercises going on in NATO that we've ever had. So I think it's been an opportunity, I don't want to say opportunity, it's been an event that has galvanized the Western world and the transatlantic alliance in ways that are important for the future in terms of our ability to compete and to fight against not just Russia, but China or whatever adversary we have.
Let's turn to domestic affairs for just a moment. Senator Moran, I spent a lot of time talking to US airline CEOs. They're a little ticked off that the president is thinking about maybe suggesting that they should provide better compensation for passengers when service doesn't live fully up to expectations. And what they say is, you give us an FAA that's fit for purpose, and maybe we won't have some of these problems. This is your bailiwick. Is the FAA fit for purpose?
So we're in the process of reauthorizing the FAA, a political process, a legislative process that occurs hopefully over a long period of time. Our authorization bill lasts for 5 years. The FAA, its employees, its leadership need certainty, but most importantly, the industry needs certainty. So we need to have a structure by which the FAA has the authorities to do the things it needs to do long into the future. But those things will only be words on paper if we don't have this administration nominate and Congress approve a highly competent, capable, long-serving administrator. The airlines need certainty. They need the assistance that comes from FAA knowing what the rules are. But that can't happen without a person, without leadership. And it's been lacking. We've been joined by the acting administrator, the FAA, here in our visit. We're all encouraging her, but we want the administration to choose her or someone.
Do you have a name that you would like?
I don't. I mean, but I know what the qualifications are, and that's experience. It is understanding of the role that the FAA plays in consumer safety. It's an understanding of the business model by which aviation works in the United States and around the globe. But it's a person. They exist by the hundreds. And there is no reason that the administration can't find a man or a woman, that fits that qualifications, and there's no reason that the United States Senate wouldn't.
How quickly is this going to happen? I think the House bill came out of committee last week, and I think it's heading for the floor. Where are we with the Senate?
So the nomination will take a while until the president nominates somebody. That's the first thing. But we're working on the authorization bill, and the House did pass a bill out of its committee last week. The Senate committee, of which I chair the Aviation Subcommittee, I'm the ranking Republican on the subcommittee. Not an opportunity to chair at the moment, not yet. But the point is that we are very close to a deal. In fact, we're arguing a little bit over about a safety and a pilot issue. But beyond that, the structure of what that legislation looks like has been agreed to by all leading parties.
You definitely don't have a name for me. You don't have somebody you would like to see in that position.
No, I want to be a friend and supporter of whoever that person is, as long as they meet my qualifications.
And there's bipartisan support for that. And there's been a lot of focus on pilots, but the other aspect of the air traffic control system are the controllers. We also need to make sure that we're adding the controllers we need to keep the planes in the sky.
I was going to come to you on that. This is an industry, so weirdly, this is an industry, other industries have solved this problem, but this is an industry that is still struggling with labor. It is still struggling with figuring out how to get the right people into the right jobs at the right time and get them to do the job that we need. Why is aviation, do you think, you've been talking to a lot of people, why is industry struggling with that so much?
Well, industry across the board is struggling with workers right now. In my state of New Hampshire, our unemployment rate is below 2%. It's the lowest it's been in 40 years. That is a huge challenge, and we've got to look at ways to increase the workforce. We've got to look at training. We've got to look at our immigration system and what makes sense in terms of immigration, because right now we have very restrictive rules on legal immigration that we need to take a look at, and we need to let in the best and brightest who want to stay in the United States.
One of the problems is that, and it's not a problem, and I mean it is a problem, but it's also a great occurrence. The demand for commercial aviation, the commercial side, the private side, is growing astronomically post-COVID. But at the same time, the U.S. is ramping up defense. We need many more workers, and they need to be highly trained and ready to go to work.
Senator Moran, Senator Shaheen, thank you both very much indeed for stopping.